The night the city crowned him untouchable was the same night he quietly decided his daughter no longer fit into his life. From the glass walls of his penthouse, the lights below looked like obedience, and power hummed through him like a second heartbeat. Somewhere behind a closed door down the hall lay a hospital bed brought into a mansion, a small body that could not move, a future he refused to look at. In the world's eyes, he was a powerful CEO who had conquered everything. In the quiet truth of that night, he was a father who had already begun to walk away. Before this story goes any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one promise can change an entire life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The CEO's name was admired on billboards and whispered in boardrooms, associated with ruthless success and impossible growth. He had built his empire from risk and discipline, cutting away anything that slowed him down. When his wife died in a sudden accident years earlier, he folded the grief into his work like a document filed away and never reopened. His daughter was young then, bright and curious, always reaching for him when he passed through the house like a visiting stranger. He told himself he was providing for her, that money was love translated into comfort. Then came the accident that shattered the illusion completely. A crash on a rain-slick road, a mangled car, and a diagnosis that landed like a final verdict. Paralysis. Permanent. The word echoed louder than any courtroom loss he had ever faced. At first, he tried to fight it the way he fought everything else, by hiring the best doctors, the most advanced machines, and the most expensive therapists. When improvement did not come, frustration replaced hope. He began to see his daughter not as a child needing patience but as a reminder of a future that would never match his expectations. Meetings ran late. Trips extended longer. The mansion grew quieter around the hospital bed, until nurses came and went without ever seeing him. He convinced himself that distance was mercy, that his absence spared them both pain. In reality, it was surrender dressed up as logic. Across town, in a cramped apartment that smelled of old paint and instant noodles, lived a man whose life had collapsed in a very different way. He was a broke single father, carrying the weight of two lives on shoulders already bent from years of labor. His wife had left after illness drained their savings, leaving behind a small boy and a silence that echoed louder than arguments ever had. He worked whatever jobs he could find, cleaned offices at night, fixed appliances during the day, and still counted coins at the grocery store. Yet, when his son asked questions about the world, his answers were gentle and full of wonder, as if hope were something he could create from thin air. Fate crossed their paths in a rehabilitation center neither of them wanted to be in. The CEO visited only because a board member insisted it would look good for publicity. The single father came because his son volunteered there, pushing wheelchairs and reading books to patients who had been forgotten. The CEO noticed the man not because he was impressive, but because he was constant. Every week, without fail, the single father showed up, cleaning floors afterward if needed, just to make sure his son could keep volunteering. He watched as the man treated every patient like family, adjusting blankets, smiling without expectation, promising nothing but presence. The CEO's daughter watched too, from her bed near the window. Her world had shrunk to the ceiling above. Her and the soft whir of machines. When the single father's son came to read stories, her eyes followed the sound, hungry for something normal. The single father noticed this quiet attention and began to include her without hesitation, reading louder, describing pictures more vividly, making sure she felt part of the room. He never asked about her condition or her past. He simply showed up. One afternoon, when the CEO arrived late and irritated, he witnessed something that unsettled him. His daughter, who barely reacted to anything anymore, was smiling. It was small, fragile, but real. The single father was kneeling beside her bed, promising her that tomorrow he would bring another story, and the day after that, and as many days as she wanted, because some promises were meant to be kept no matter how hard life became. The words were simple, but they landed with the force of something sacred. The CEO felt a sting he could not name. Over the following weeks, the CEO found himself arriving more often, standing at the back of the room, watching. He saw how the single father never treated the girl like a problem to be solved, but like a person whose life still mattered. He noticed how his daughter's eyes seemed brighter on days the man came, how she listened not just to stories but to the steady rhythm of someone who refused to abandon her. Slowly, the CEO's carefully constructed distance began to crack. The single father knew nothing about wealth or power. He knew about promises, about waking up every day even when everything hurt, because someone depended on him. One evening, as he cleaned the floor near the CEO's daughter, he spoke about life without bitterness, about how love was not proven by success but by showing up when it was inconvenient. He spoke without knowing the impact, without aiming his words at anyone in particular. The CEO felt each sentence land inside him like an accusation and an invitation all at once. The turning point came when the rehabilitation center announced funding cuts. Programs would be reduced. Volunteers would no longer be allowed. The single father's face fell when he heard the news, not for himself, but for the children who would lose something they had come to rely on. The CEO saw his daughter's reaction, the fear she could not voice, the loss she could not escape. In that moment, something inside him broke open. He realized that he had given up long before any doctor did. He had abandoned his daughter emotionally, hiding behind money and inevitability. That night, he sat alone in his office, staring at reports that suddenly felt meaningless. He thought of the single father's promise, simple and unbreakable. He thought of his daughter's smile, fragile and rare. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel the weight of his choices. The next morning, he made a decision that would change everything. He personally funded the rehabilitation center, not as a donation for publicity, but as a commitment. Programs expanded. Volunteers returned. The single father and his son were welcomed back, unaware of the storm they had stirred. But the CEO's greatest change happened privately. He began spending time with his daughter, awkward at first, unsure of how to be present without fixing anything. He learned to read to her, to sit in silence, to listen to the small sounds she made when she was content. He learned that progress was not always measured in movement, but in connection. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The mansion no longer felt like a monument to success, but a home learning how to breathe again. The single father never asked for recognition. When the CEO finally approached him, gratitude heavy in his chest, the man simply nodded, as if kindness required no explanation. He spoke about his own struggles, about nights when he doubted himself, about promises he made to his son just to survive another day. He reminded the CEO that children did not need perfection, only presence. The words sealed something permanent. As time passed, the CEO's daughter began to show small signs of improvement, not miracles, but moments of strength born from emotional safety. Therapists noticed her engagement increase. Nurses spoke of her resilience. The CEO noticed her laughter, the way she looked at him now without fear. He realized that while he had once given up on her, she had never given up on him. That truth humbled him more than any business failure ever could. Near the end of this journey, the single father faced his own crisis when his job fell through. The CEO, remembering what it felt like to be unseen, stepped in quietly, offering stability without charity, respect without condition. Two lives that had seemed worlds apart became connected by a promise that traveled in both directions. If this story is touching something inside you, if it reminds you of someone you almost gave up on or someone who never gave up on you, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and stay connected to this channel. Your engagement helps spread stories that matter. Before the ending, here is a special request. Please comment below and share what promise you believe has the power to change a life. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. In the final scene of this story, the CEO stood beside his daughter as sunlight filled the room, no longer hiding from what life had given him. Across the room, the single father watched his son read another story, keeping another promise. Power no longer meant control. Success no longer meant escape. It meant staying, even when it was hard. And in that quiet understanding, two fathers found redemption, one promise at a time.